I would like to speak to Mr. Alex Bambona. You talked about the issue of ensuring food availability. And I love when Mr. Kabanda talked about adequate food. You talked about working with large-scale farmers, UPDF, and Uganda prisons. How are you going to ensure that? And when you talked about the issue of mindset, when we still have schools that are using agriculture as a punishment, if you committed something, go to the garden. That is the punishment. How are you working on these things together to ensure that availability? You so much speak to.
Thank you so much. I may not competitively talk about the school, because it is in the Ministry of Education. But what I know, it is not in the rules of Uganda that catch should be used as a punishment. In fact, it is not supposed to be done so. It's completely outlawed. So why it is being done, it is being done illegally. Even we have outlawed the beating of children, you know. These days, if a school beats somebody's child, if a parent takes him or teach a task, they can be trouble. So that one is being done, I think, illegally. It is not in there. You know, there are some things which happen, but they happen illegally. You know, the breaking of laws. But know that is a national policy. Then there is an issue we have talked about.
The availability that you were talking about.
Can you remind me of the question?
The availability of food that you were talking about, and you said you want to work through prisons, Greek, UPDF, and large-scale farmers. How are you thinking of working with that particular process?
Yeah, we're already working with them, with prisons, UPDF, then NEC, and Greek. We are supporting the availability of inputs. For the case of government institutions, they are giving direct grants because the government doesn't make business. So just for producing of food, then the food will be, we'll have to see how we can have a food reserve system, and will be supported with post-harvest infrastructure or some pest control. I don't know, people don't want to hear about pesticides, but so far, we have not yet tried to complete organic production in Uganda. So we use pesticides, agrochemicals, including fertilizers, to make sure we have intensive production, and including irrigation infrastructure. So we support them with all the whole value chain, and they produce the food through government facility, through government grant. Then for the case of large-scale farmers, the same story, but the only difference is one. For them, they will have to pay back the money. Also, they will have infrastructure supported for the hiring of tractors, or even buying tractors, and give for service infrastructure. And then we make sure we link the food produced to the storing reserve system. And in case there is food, there are food gaps within the production system, we can tap on the food available within the system and make sure there is no too much food stress. Because we are worried, if people get too stressed from food security, there may be trouble. They may fail to rebound back, and the country may suffer.
Okay.
So we're trying to make sure there is food store somewhere. Yeah.
Mr. Bwenje, as I go to the audience, you talked about a strategic analysis that you're trying to pay attention to, including financing, the institutions there. How much more are we going to wait for that analysis, and what is it speaking to directly? But you also mentioned the issue of financing. And this is a situation of now, not tomorrow, not the other day. How are you dealing with this? Because I am looping this conversation because I moderated such a session, an IPC dialogue, and before we went into the Karamoja food crisis. And they had said in that report that 3 out of 5 people in the Karamoja sub-region lacked food even for the next week. 2 months later, I don't know what government did about that report, but 2-3 months down the road, boom, we were reporting people dying in Karamoja. So while we do this analysis, are we putting the time aspect into consideration?
Thank you, Mildred. I'll begin with your last question of financing. And you see, people have talked a lot about the revolving fund of the parish development model. And this is money that we cannot undermine. This is money that we cannot underestimate. So the money we are pushing to the parish is just one way of this financing. And objective 5 of the agro-industrialization program, we talk about agriculture financing, making sure that we have appropriate products available for farmers and all that. That's one way. And last week we were, this time around, to remove those duplications of different actors. We have put money at the money has been, the seeding has been put at the program level. You know, the different votes to say that we have 20 programs of the National Development Plan 3. And each of these programs can have about 3 or 5 or 7 votes. For example, maybe organization can have MAIF itself and its agencies, Ministry of Water and others. This time we have put money at that level, whereby people will come in, different votes will come in and spend money. Money, yes, we've catered for your wage, your fixed costs, statutory obligations, but we have, say, 200 billion. Tell us, what are you going to use this money for? And one of the criteria we have put in place is food security, which is a component of food systems approach. And also you realize that, so because of that, it is, we've taken the processes carefully. And also we've taken a hybrid approach. We're not going to wait for the strategic analysis. It is ongoing, but this is not new. And we are rearranging ourselves as countries. Uganda now, I'm talking about Uganda. The NDP 3, considering its program approach, actually we are so happy a country that we have done a program approach, whereby how do we share these results? How do we share these outcomes? And a food systems approach is one of those areas whereby we are doing a program approach. So now, in the current constraints that we are having as a country, where the resources are not enough, we've refocused ourselves. We have what we call program implementation action plans. We've called the different MDAs. Now, the little money that we have, one of the criteria that we follow, apart from being achievable, having a presidential directive, one of the criteria is food security, food systems. So we focus the money. Yeah, so to tell you is that we are not asleep, and because of the very many actors in the food systems, we have also set up what we call a food systems coordination committee. Tomorrow, it is going to be launched at the World Food Day in Muronge. That's a very big step. It represents people from the different MDAs, private sector, development partners, people, the scientists doing research and all that on that committee to make sure that we guide food systems approach in the country. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And of course, it's only time I'd like to have this sanitizer so I can pass on this microphone. I will request that we'll be as brief and precise as possible, but okay, with a sanitizer right here. Feel free to tell us your name and your question or supplement and make it as brief as possible.
Thank you so much. I'm Engineer Chibuka, Semper Ronald. I'm from Operation Wealth Creation. Yes. I don't know whether some of you have children here, but if you have children at school, then you should be worried. Because we have aflatoxins versus metals. So if you think your children are eating food, they are eating a mixture of aflatoxins and metals. Why? The big players, that is the Grain Council, have machines that have magnets. So when they are processing the flour that goes through those magnets, it picks the metals. But the small guys in Chisenyi and all the towns, where are your schools and most of you buy the cheap flour? Those machines don't have magnets. If you doubt, you go home, get a magnet and throw it in your posho or in your flour. Okay? You will see exactly what we are talking about. So this is a serious issue. And if we are seated here, busy saying in nutrition, the biggest consumed food in this country is flour, maize flour. So if we are not going to make a resolution on this one, then we should go home. Because we are doing nothing here. Aflatoxins, we've spoken for so long. So I need to tell you, NPA, the problem is the technology we are using. We are using hammer mills. Hammers hammer. And when metal hits metal, there are sparks, and those sparks end up where? In Kenya, they use roller mills. This is why they eat the whole grain, but they use roller mills. Roller mills will give you lesser metal, though it will not save you from the aflatoxins. So at least for them, they will die from the aflatoxins, but they will not die from the metal. But for us, we are dying from both.
From both.
So we need to resolve that issue when it comes to nutrition. So, and lastly, I wanted to correct. The gentleman there spoke passionately about government and all that. Brothers and sisters, this country has what we call ministries, departments, and agencies who are responsible with specific budgets, and they are constitutional. So let's hold National Bureau of Standards accountable, but not the entire government. Because National Bureau of Standards is through the Constitution. But if you put a blanket statement on government, you are dragging us along. Because some of us are doing a good job.
Thank
so
you.
the goods that leave this country should be certified.
Thank you.
The goods that come into this country should be certified.
Thank you
by
very
who?
much.
National Bureau of Standards. Hold him culprit, arrest him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. He's exonerated himself, but true. We'll be moving on. Let's make it as brief as possible, but feel free to express yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm Father Hilary, Caritas, Kasanalware Diocese. I appreciate all the efforts of the government in putting policies and strategies in place. I'm only concerned about the governance area. I come from the rural area, and this is what I see else is doing. Rallying up for votes, chasing thieves, catching up witchcraft, and collecting 10% from selling land. And I want to ask any of you, you come from villages where you come from, how many of your leaders have ever called you for a development meeting? So the competence of the implementers of the programs is at stake. So all the money is at waste. Community participation cannot be there when the leaders are not organized and trained. The strategies that are put in place are not aligned to the challenges and cultures of the community. And also, of course, someone already talked about the rule of law. If it is not applying up here, where else will it apply? Finally, our leaders, they are many in number, cannot monitor the progress of the programs. We still need the people to come from Kampala, to come from the ministries, to monitor the work done on the ground. And you think those programs belong to the people? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father. I think next to him as well. And then we will move to the back and first go with the ladies.
Thank you very much. My name is Monsignor Dr. Francis Ndamira, the Director of Caritas Uganda. I've been in this office doing this 28 years. I am 83. But I can, at my age and my profession, we are organizing groups all over Uganda. We are inside. We know what you are talking about. Sometimes I wonder what you are talking about. Because to me, I have been with farmers in their head, in their villages, from Kotido, Kisoro, Arua, refugees in Bidibidi, thousands, 100,000 were them. Food security, from a toilet. We begin there and work with them 3 years and 4 years, each group. And we build groups, associations, and cooperatives, all over everywhere. But our question is this: how are you successful? We are successful. Why? Because national office we have M and E. At the diocesan we have M and E. And we have a system of monitoring and regularly in the village with these farmers, working with them. And we know, and we bring in sub-counties and even the district, the government. What is lacking? Really and literally, monitoring, but in specifically extension workers. The first 10 years of our independence, we had those things, telling people to storage food everywhere, and monitoring to check whether that food is still eaten or it is still in the barn, in the store. Those things are not. You begin there before you put a national food storage everywhere. You begin there, where the food is produced, the farmer there. And the other thing I want to say, are you really serious with food security here? Are you? Is the government is? And only the woman who is digging is now. All the nations internationally decided 10% of your budget must go to where?
Agriculture.
What is it now? What is it? Is it 3%? Is it what? I don't blame you, the ministry. We are working with them very much, agriculture. They know us. I don't blame you. But the question is why? If we are a politician, why don't you put 10%? You are still on zero after 20 years. And for us as Caritas, we say, with NGOs, we are saying, if we are waiting for the 10% from NRM and other governments, let us do our business.
Okay.
Our little money, we go with these people and they develop. The last thing is, we have formed 28 districts with memorandum of understanding of the northern, Great North. Come and see what we are doing. All the cows were with us in Guru University. We use the universities. Come and see what we are doing with other NGOs. And they will be ashamed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's a hands-on experience of what's happening. Let me first go to the ladies for a gender balance right there and the two gentlemen behind him, and we'll come. Let's make it as brief as possible.
Thank you very much. We were about to scream because today is an international day for the rural women. Some of them are at the exhibition, so we are representing them. I want to thank Monsignor because he picked part of my question, the 10%. Why are we still talking about 3%? And yet, everybody is telling us agriculture is the way to go. The engineer from Operation Wealth Creation presented previously. Massive program. The gap is, while we are looking at the must-have, the haves, we are not putting where the 70% is. Now the question goes, and I liked your submission, the last
Mr.
discussant. Kabanda, Enange Mvasingo. Now, one of the other things that we need to do, and the question goes to all the know, why people are progressing under Caritas and Oxfam and others, is the trust. And you know why people trust you? You have visited them in their homes. They feel you. They know you. Those into the markets now, you know the Ugandan market, those, even if you're not in the food industry, if you want to do marketing in Uganda, Ugandans tell you they want to feel you. It's not about the money, it's what is your soul.
Yeah.
And I think the church is feeling the soul.
Yeah.
So government and other NGOs, international NGOs, where is the soul? I think we need to go back to that and answer that, and the soul should be the 10% to agriculture. Thank you.
I agree. We will drum that as well as the media. Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, the panelists and the moderator. I just want to thank all of you for those insights. I'm just wondering, do we have an organic policy for the country to promote organic agriculture because it has good conservation benefits. Both we protect the environment and above all, it has good climate change mitigation and adaptation benefits. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, and of course that will be, so I'll have him, and lastly to him. At the back, please. The gentleman in black, the one in blue, and I will end off with the gentleman in the checkered shirt. And we'll close the discussion here.
Thank you so much, Mildred. My name is Wako Geoffrey Jr., and I am a student of law at Kampala International University. And I also double as the founder of the Generation Plus movement. Well, it is so amazing and wonderful to be tackling food security, which is under SDG 2. I would like also in the same vein to draw your attention to two issues that are so pertinent. The first one being that talking is important, planning is important, implementation is the most important thing. I have been having this bottle of water since they have distributed them. I've been talking to it open up. It is still closed. Because of one reason. I need to take action to make it open. And when I'm speaking about action, I'll also introduce point number 2 of engaging young people in your processes. It is so heartbreaking that amongst all panelists, in as much as Mr. Kabanda has cited out an issue of gender equality and balance, we are lacking a young person seated on one of those seats, sharing ideas and mooting issues pertaining things that affect them internally. It is so heartbreaking. It is therefore my humble and firm appeal unto you that let us put young people at the forefront and engage them actively by including them on such engagements. Otherwise, this place would be full of university students listening to issues that affect their future, but none of them is here because amongst the panelists, they can relate to none. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. A great appeal. I totally agree with you because Uganda's demography is more than 70% of people who are below the age of 18. So, agreed.
Okru John Michael is my name. I am the RDC of Nakapiripiriti in Karamoja.
Oh, nice meeting you.
I want to appreciate this invitation. And as I appreciate, I would also want to appreciate the panelists for so far a job well done. I bring the perspective of Karamoja. The Karamojong are dying of hunger. The Karamojong, everything that has been said about Karamoja, and since I think I'm the only one around here, I may not know exactly everybody, but I want to speak on behalf of the region. The choice of the theme, linking climate change, food security, nutrition, and well-being, I think because of what now I know about Karamoja, this theme applies more to Karamoja. When you look at climate change, this is prolonged temperatures and weather as it affects food production. It is in Karamoja where you have long spells of drought. And we're all aware that with the drought periods, you cannot do much. Government has tried very much to provide water for production, but it is still a long way. The second perspective, an insight that I want to give about Karamoja is the inbuilt culture. The mindset of the people in Karamoja is what and where the problem is. The central focus of on a cow as opposed to food production brings challenges. That a Karamojong will value a cow and not for purposes of either getting much out of it, but pride. That he has very many cows So his central focus, as I emphasized, is a cow. Now, when it comes to those who are agro-pastoralists, trying a little bit of food production, even when they have produced food, because of the long tenure of World Food Program in the region, they think that the food they have produced is for them to sell, and they will wait for World Food Program to provide food. What's even more interesting is that where there is no presence of World Food Program, even schools are not functional, because it is a food that acts as an incentive or as a motivator for children to be at school. So thank you so much, World Food Program.
Okay.
And we are talking about a region where there is the highest presence of non-governmental organizations.
Sure.
I want to appreciate Caritas. What Caritas has done in Karamoja is so massive. It has touched every part of Karamoja. And World Food Program has changed the approach of handout to now enabling the Karamojons to produce. So whatever they are doing is now to fund partners that have successfully convinced them that they can work in the area and line of food production. So
Thank you, sir.
Government, I have heard about people talk about government. There is nothing that government has not done in trying to uplift Karamoja as a region.
Okay.
You cutting me short?
Yes, I am, because of time.
Okay. So otherwise, I want to say thank you for this invitation. And with any other opportunity, I am sure, since Karamoja is the central focus now, we shall be available to share insights.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aradisi. And I think you speak to a key aspect, which is mindset change. We'll have our last speaker here. As I'd earlier on hinted, in blue, you had forgotten the gentleman. Then Dr. Krut will just have a final one before we get, because of time, but more of these conversations are continuing tomorrow. We'll make it as brief as possible.
Thank you very much. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the moderator and the panelists. I think Mr. Chimera, we are meeting like for the second time now. My name is Matima Mwedin. I am an agronomist. Mine is mostly to go to the panelist from MAIF. He mentioned the strategies they are using. They are using now to tackle the issue of food security in Uganda. And in my own opinion, I think they are grabbing the bull by the waist, not by the legs. Because since time memorial, since I began to familiarize myself with the institutions of government in the agriculture sector, I know Uganda Prison Service has been producing food. But we never know where that food goes. What assurance do you have that this time we are going to see that food? Then the other thing, I think that is not the right approach, because those are just countable number of institutions they are supporting and a few large-scale farmers. But there is a whole private sector which contributes. I'm privileged to be doing agronomy for an exporting company. It is amazing how private sector discipline themselves to even be selective on the chemicals they are to use, and they go ahead to task you that whenever a supplier is going to spray, you have to be there to make sure they apply the doses properly. But who cares about the food on the Ugandan market? We need, the ministry has to take a deliberate step and effort to regulate the agro inputs we receive on market. However much you will go and put money in people's hands, and you've not solved the legal challenges that are frustrating the agricultural sector, you are pouring, what should I say? You are trying to carry water in a basket which is full of holes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You speak to quality monitoring and evaluation, which is very, very key. Let's have Dr. Tomokrot briefly, and then we'll have final remarks from our panel.
Thank you very much. Mine is a small question, but since we are thinking about the concept of domesticating food systems in planning, we shall refer to Karamoja. UBO's published statistics about poverty index in the region. Consistently, it was showing that Karamoja was on the poverty thing was going there. Did the government use those statistics to plan? Because if they had seen those statistics that the red was there, then the necessary intervention would have now come in at appropriate time, so that to prevent what? The hunger from coming. Because the red line, you indicated it. The red line came, the statistics came, and we actually said, what's going to happen now? So it needed a simple condition to come. So the insecurity came in, and hunger was just forwarding. So using planning data, because UBOS produces data, using it to plan for interventions is fundamental. And I think in the case of Karamoja, we failed. And I don't know whether government uses the statistics UBOS brings to plan, because affirmative action should have been given to Karamoja at that time.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Korot. We will get the microphone back to my panelists to respond to some of the questions, but also give us the closing remarks, lest we will slip here. But I love that we are still settled and want to listen to this because it's very particular. So I'll start off with you, Mr. Alex Bambona.
Thank you so much, Mildred. I think I have the last question from the gentleman, the younger voice.
Yes.
Yeah. The issue is, what assurance are we having to ensure that we have the food within the market from the prisons and other institutions? First of all, I need us to understand the context of the intervention. It's an emergency intervention. It is not the normal development-oriented intervention. So when we have this intervention, it doesn't mean there are no other interventions from the sector. The assurance, there is a system of monitoring the food being produced. They are not producing it just in isolation. We are there, we have extension officers, and we are monitoring. Even we are on the ground. They are not just producing. The prisons originally have been producing for their prisoners. So we realize they have the capacity. We could not go to the private sector this season because it needed a lot of organization. But next season we will work with the private sector. And for a special intervention, to make sure we beef up the ongoing interventions. The intervention, already we are working with the private business as usual in our normal extension program and in our other projects. Like we have the agriculture value chain project, we have the SCDP, all those are still ongoing. We have operation waste creation, they're still ongoing. This is a special intervention to plug the gap. It is like an emergency rescue operation for Karamoja when they are giving out food relief. It is on these lines of emergency rescue operation. The private sector needs to be on board. It will be on board. It is already on next season. They are identifying the private sector players. They will do their business as usual production, for profit-oriented production, but with a stronger support from government. But we'll again see, because the private sector needs money for it, that's all. Then we'll see how we rate the food produced with the food reserve facility. And another system, which colleagues have talked about here. The reduction of inputs, again, is not that this intervention is only intervention of MAIF. There is a whole reduction of input, reduction from foreign inputs, and this has been a sticking problem. So it has not come today. It has been on for a longer time. MAIF shares this mandate with the UNBS. So they're working together to have a special certification program for input. And they have identified and published a number of input dealers, which must follow to make sure that the farmers must strictly buy from those certified input dealers. But sometimes also, there may be some blockage of flow information for one reason or another, and the farmers don't know those certified input dealers. So they buy from other wrong people, and they get the wrong inputs. But see, this problem is the whole value chain approach, because it is not a isolated problem. It is a systemic problem. Sometimes you may lack inspectors to go everywhere very fast. So it is not only, it is not an agriculture problem per se. It is a problem of the whole. Sometimes you lack funding to do things, and you don't reach there in time.
Okay.
Yeah, but what is important to understand is this program we are having is not completely removing other programs of government. We have other program like mechanization. We know climate change is coming, and we know is with us, and there's no way we can continue producing as I've been producing. So we have prioritized mechanization.
Okay.
We are putting up regional mechanization centers in the whole country to make sure that we can, and we're even giving tractors. I think you have seen on TV, there is a supply of tractors by the ministry. But of course, this country, you cannot hide from the fact that we do not have enough money. Money cannot be enough. So, but the government is trying its level best because we are thinking of, like, I think 10,000 tractors now. We have started with a few tractors. Something we are doing. So we understand the problem. Then we know we need irrigation. And we have prioritized irrigation as a government. We have prioritized irrigation. We are trying to get valley dams in Karamoja. We are trying to get the irrigation schemes no longer with NDP. So I think for irrigation schemes, they're almost complete. Then we have prioritized the on-farm water harvesting and irrigation facilities, small-scale irrigation scheme. But of course, these are a heavy investment infrastructure for government. We must agree. But I think with the food system transformation pathway, we will identify those simple technologies. Because irrigation is very high capital intensive. So we may look at those technologies which are not necessarily very expensive, which somebody can do on his farm, like mulching, like agroforestry. There are many other things which can be done by you and me. And we conserve the environment and also conserve the water. I think irrigation is not the only magic bullet. There are many others which can be done.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I think when you talk about that loop, I was earlier looking at the 1 acre model that Dr. Kurut talked about, and it encompasses agroforestry on 1 acre, but you have forest or trees for fuel. You also have those for commercial purposes. And I think that is one thing that government needs to be paying attention to. Dr. Kurut is here. Let's get to Mr. Bwenje. To respond to some of the few questions that came through and also give us your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Mildred. Just to respond to a few questions. Yeah. Mr. Sempewa from OWC raised the issue of aflatoxins, and I agree with him and metals. But this week, actually, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives has put up, it has a policy of grain trade, but the policy has been lacking to be enforced. And this week, they have inaugurated a committee of very many representatives who will make sure that it is implemented. So one of the ways to curb the aflatoxins is through the enforcement of this policy. Further here, we are all believing that our mindset change program of NDP3 will do a lot in changing the mindset of the people. Then I forgot her name. The 10% contribution to agriculture. I think we shall all agree that this notion is shifting now. With the emergence of food systems approach, this is going to shift now because they're going to take us on. Food systems is wide, and because government and the other players, they will say, we are investing in storage, we're investing in transport, we're investing in marketing, we're investing in infrastructure, roads. So what are you talking about, the 10%? We put almost more than 30%. Yeah, so it's something that Africa and Uganda, it's a percentage that we can revise actually and go back to the table and renegotiate how much comes to the food systems. So to me, I find the 10% shifting. And then Mr. Tim, the statistics, the planning takes care of all statistics in the country. And I will say, for example, Karamoja, we have what we call the Regional Development Program of the NDP3. We have those areas that have been hit hard by some of these, like food insecurity, and we had special programs in place put, for example, they even have, while we have key priority commodities for agro-industrialization that should spur us to achieve, there are those special commodities that we are put in certain areas that should help ensure that either people are creating their income, also achieving food security. Lastly, what I have to say is we've done the mid-term review of the National Development Plan 3, and very importantly, it has informed how we can prioritize food systems currently in the remaining 2 years, but also coming of the National Development Plan 4. So this I can promise on behalf of the National Planning Authority that we will take good care of the food systems approach.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Rukundo, please take it up.
Yes, thank you so much, Mildred, and thanks to everybody here. Mildred, I'll just emphasize that a food system approach calls for addressing sustainability in all its pillars. That is environmental sustainability, by ensuring what we produce does not affect the environment negatively, because we know very well that agriculture and related activities contribute about 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. So as we deal with agriculture, we must deal with the environmental sustainability. The other angle of sustainability is economic sustainability. We must make sure that whatever we are dealing with has economic sense. Not only do we get food from the garden, but also we buy. So when we talk about food security, the access dimension is very important. And that's why we hear that there are so many people in agriculture, but so many also are suffering. We also have social sustainability. Production of food should not cause disruption of social systems. So that's why we need to deal with the land tenure systems and etc. But also the health risks. We need to make sure that whatever we produce is healthy, and does not really affect people's way of living in terms of nutrition and future longevity. But also, Mildred, it's worth noting that domestication of food systems requires intention. And we only see intention through policy. Policy is intent. So we must see deliberate effort through policy in the area of food system. And that's why we are very happy that government has considered developing a food systems transformation plan, hopefully next year, as a way of committing itself to ensure that there's convergence of resources and expertise towards this cause. So finally, Mildred, as a country, we have a rich agroecological system, and therefore the indigenous food and food systems must be promoted. Mildred, we have the richest and most nutritious indigenous foods. Millet you will not get elsewhere. People yearn for Ugandan food. But now what do we see? We see cuisines from other countries, the pizza, the what. But we need to see pizza from cassava, we need to see pizza from all these commodities. Import substitution will happen if we promote our local commodities. So that's why we are saying, let's go back to the millet. Let's go back to the sorghum. Let's go back to the malakwang and etc. because they are very nutritious and only found in Uganda. So we have to balance the coin. As we go for improved varieties, we also have to promote our indigenous systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rukundo. Let me move on. And I think you spoke to a very important one when you talk about our indigenous foods. Sometimes you look for an indigenous species of a particular plant and it will take you forever to find it. Mr. Chimera, responding to a few that came through, but also your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank our colleagues, the next generation or the generation today. Like I started, it is a pleasure that this was done in a learning institution. That is one. Majority of the consumers are you. We are in sunset, you are in sunrise. and listening to you and the issues that you've raised, I always tell people, plan, do, check, and act. Turning the talking into action is something very key. And this is where the action as a country with regards domesticating food systems in our planning. We have beautiful plans. Let's invest in them. That's the action I cry out for. And roll out the quality infrastructure. We will have massive production. But if we do not have quality culture, quality governance, say, in all the food system, we are going to lag behind. I would like to talk to you as the youth and talking about the indigenous and talking to us all. Have the pleasure on the plate, safety in the mind. Consumers, we have got rights and responsibility. We have a right to basic needs. We have a right to safety. We have a right to choice. Can we make the right choices of the foods we eat that are healthy, nutritious, that will build our immunity? But then we have a responsibility of being critically aware of our actions, having social concern, and the other aspect, we have to take action and be in solidarity as consumers. What I would like to end with, we must be sustainable consumers, bringing in the element of social concern. Then we have to do economic aspects responsibly, and we have to protect our environment. These are very key. And as the biggest number of the population we have, I would like to close with a demonstration to us all. Small steps can lead up to greater actions. And let me just use, as you fail to open up the bottle of water to drink it, let me use it for those small steps. And you take it to KIU and those are here and other universities. This bottle of water, we have a consumer responsibility of having social concern and environmental awareness. But we have a right to a healthy environment as consumers. But unfortunately, we act irresponsibly. We litter. So from today, I would wish after you finish drinking water, take in the recycling, reuse. If you're not going to reuse it, don't litter this, put it in here, remove the label, because this is consumer action that we need. Because if you leave it intact, you might get food fraud. Water that will come in it might not be safe. Hold it like this.
I wish everyone would do the same as we are holding our bottles if you're done
so
with
when you crush it, it will be this small. But if you leave it intact, it will be blown away when it is empty. But once it is crushed like this, it doesn't easily move, and it can be collected in a small container. And I will ask you a last question as a suspect. Can you drink water or anything from such a bottle? So your small steps and actions will make the food systems possible, and it will be domesticated by your actions as consumers. Thank you very much.
All right, I think we end up in a very, very practical note. If you haven't, please, can we finish off with a noise by you making sure that you crunch up your, and it can't easily, and you can actually be able to test. Throwing a bottle that you have been able to squeeze up, it goes further than throwing a bottle that you haven't, so it goes anywhere.
And it will fit in a small plate.
Exactly.
If they are full, they will not fit in. So if we have a small box, we can have hundreds of these in a small box and will not litter. So consumer action and responsibility is very key.
Well, a round of applause for that, because it's just the practicality that we're talking about when we say climate change and linking it to food security. Mr. Kavanda, you have the last say to respond to a few that came through, if any, and also give us your closing remarks.
And I think for me, it is the understanding of the rights holders, understanding that they have a right, and how they can hold the duty bearers accountable. But also duty bearers, we may be blaming them when they actually don't know that these are the legal obligations. Like the Reverend Father said, that you go to LC and the only thing they do is collecting the 10% from Chibanja selling. So I think we need to go back to the basics, and we are not starting from zero. Government has done some work. For example, for me, I'm happy we have the Human Rights Enforcement Act, which even allows a magistrate's court at district level to hear and determine human rights cases. So this is something that needs to continue. One thing that I have not had coming out clearly is the seed. We are in communities training people about their rights and everything, but one of the questions is, where is the seed? You realize that the traditional knowledge and practice about seed has since, got lost. So how do we go back to the seed? 2 weeks ago, I visited the National Seed Bank. You need to visit it. Maybe the media will help that place to get funding. They told us that they have been able to only save 20% of the Uganda's seed diversity. Only 20%. Meanwhile, we are losing, is it per year, 13%. But when you go, you wonder why we don't have a seed system in every district. Because if we are talking about, we called it domestication, and then we must have the seed at the community level. And when you look at the Seed Act and the seed policy, they are fighting each other. The Seed Act is talking about commercialization. Then you have pockets of indigenous seed in the policy. There need to be harmonization. So when we are talking about law, so the enabling legal framework, if the seed is not streamlined, you are opening us to the people who are stealing from us. The seeds people are buying are not germinating, at least not to the percentage they're supposed to be germinating. But many of the seed types are fake. Others are just, putting color on maize. So it's as if Ugandans are set up for whoever wants to steal from them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mildred, we have an organic policy in the country.
Oh yes.
And an implementation strategy, but I trust Caritas and others might have talked about it. And I think the issue is the act, operationalizing it, and the actual investment. To me, the most important thing, I'm sorry to insist,
it's okay,
is investment in operationalizing. We have very good frameworks, but operationalizing them is our weakest point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause for our intelligent panel. That was very insightful right there. If you did learn anything, please learn to dispose of those bottles of water, because I know many of us, instead of boiling your water at home and picking it up in a big reusable bottle, you choose to buy, which is okay, but we need to dispose of the bottles very well. And I think Mr. Chimera also mentioned one thing while we talk about food, and especially in this day and age where the president called some of these lifestyle diseases prosperity diseases, is that whereas you have the pleasure on the plate, you want your pizza, you want your chips and chicken, do you have safety in the mind? Is it healthy for you? Is it good for you? I think we need to take those on. Thank you so much to our great panel. I will hand over now to Dr. Tomok Root. My name is Mildred Tohaise. It's been a pleasure holding this up.
Thank you, Mildred, and thank you, the panelists, and all of you who have been here, who have stayed to listen to this. I think if there is anything, we have learned one thing, getting this thing done. Thank you very much. On behalf of the organizers of this dialogue, I would like really to thank you for getting your time to come. At the last minute, we reached you late, but sure, you managed to come. Thank you. But you have not disappointed us and disappointed the audience. So we will carry on the message. We're going to summarize the actions that we have agreed here. And the minister said, whatever you agree, bring to us. Whatever you talked from here, bring to government and see how we can see if there's anything that we can add. So one of the messages that we think, I think, what I picked here is that we need to dialogue more with the people in government. But sometimes government is there, we are here. Yesterday, General Kavuma said 3 things: God, government, God has done his part, government has done his part, but us, we must do our part. If our part is to mobilize government to act, let us do it, if it can give us the result that we need. So on behalf of the university team, the partners of the organizers, I see Khan here, and it was very quick for you to get to camera because I tricked the chairperson of Khan. Quickly, in 2 minutes, I had your name. I said, Kavan, I don't have him. Don't remember. So as we go here, I invite you to have a dinner. Don't go home. We have a dinner to have here before we go at the VIP where we sat. We shall have the dinner there before you go. All of us are invited for the dinner. Thank you very much.